we're all, to some extent, numb to what's going on. And so almost anything could come out now, and our reaction to it is conditioned by everything that's come before. But I want you to put yourself back in the position of us in January or February of 2017. We haven't had all of this information come out. You don't know who Mueller is, you don't know who Comey is. I mean, you probably know who they are, but they're not big figures in your life. We haven't had all this. There's no Stormy Daniels, there's no Evanetti, there's no any of this stuff. You don't gotta worry about Cohen. And you find out immediately after Trump is inaugurated, when we're all concerned about the interference in the election that's already being talked about, that the president's lawyer received $500,000 at that point from a Russian oligarch. But now it's, I guess it's more information. That is gigantic, and I don't understand, considering that guy is not a client of his, he has 3 clients, what reasonable explanation is there for that?
And honestly, it's so bad that, like you said, if this had come out at that point when it actually happened, the reaction, first of all, the people that are concerned about any kind of Russian interference in our election, it wasn't all of us, it was some of us. And it still remains the case, including our president, who said, yeah, whatever it is that our intelligence agencies gathered and said directly and authoritatively is the case, no, I don't believe it, big deal. But even more so now, it's so backwards that hearing about it now actually makes people dig their heels in deeper and go, oh, well, who shouldn't get $500,000 from a Russian oligarch? That's the way it's supposed to be. It's not even where you want to brush aside, but then say it's a good thing. We've gone completely upside down.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how Avenatti got the information as well. Because apparently the information he had about the individual payments, both from Vexelberg but also AT&T and Novartis and all of that, was extremely specific. And there's been some theorizing about how he might have acquired that. I'm sure in the end we will find out. But for now, some people believe that it might have come about as a result of discovery in a California lawsuit having to do with Stormy Daniels and her non-disclosure agreement. So it might be that because Michael Cohen was a part of that, they were able to get access to bank records. The dates and amounts of the money transfers are apparently not generally considered, especially the dates. You don't generally get access to that information unless you have direct access to the paperwork itself. And it's hard to imagine other circumstances where we would have gotten that. Some people believe it could be a leak from inside of the Treasury Department. I hope it's not that, because then they will attempt to say the entire thing is dirty and all that.
So it's random things like this. It's the reason why this administration, a lot of times with Cohen, especially with the raids of all 3 of his office, home, and hotel, the reason why this freaked everyone in that circle out so much is then it connects to other things. One of the defenses you'll see on a lot of the people that are backing up this administration is, hey, you know what? The scope of this investigation by Mueller has gotten way beyond what he originally said. They're consistently worried about whatever else can come as an offshoot from the normal investigation process. So like, oh my God, if he finds this, then it's gonna lead to that. That's how criminals, hugely international criminals work. They have things connected in all these different ways, and that's what we're looking at. So when you're mad about potential other things coming out, again, I go back to the same thing. If you've done nothing wrong, then you have nothing to worry about. They say that to 2-bit criminals all the time.
That's true.
Why doesn't that follow you?
And by the way, it says in the initial document setting up the special counsel investigation that he will investigate the Russian interference and other matters arising from that investigation. If they find that Trump strangled someone, they're not gonna be like, well, that's not directly tied to it, so I guess, whoop, don't worry about that, throw that body.
And I'll argue that this is directly tied to it. So after you win the election that, again, our intelligence agency said was interfered with by Russian folks in some kind of way in power, then immediately after this guy is in office, then is handed $500,000 to his attorney. For what? For influence or for the next step in what they want from him?
Yeah.
I don't see how it's not connected.
Yeah, it appears to be, and it might be that we got that information as a result of the raids of Michael Cohen's office, which we were told was unrelated and unnecessary. It turns out, if that's where we got it from, then it was not. However, Mueller also talked to Vexelberg earlier this year before the raid, so it's possible he knew about it beforehand. But in any event, very often in developments of this story, there's a number of people who are either defenders for Trump or want to distract from Trump who will immediately say, this is a big waste of time, this is a witch hunt, this is unrelated, and when it turns out later on that it wasn't and they did find something, suddenly they're not talking about it anymore. And so I want to turn to that now. This is a great opportunity to debut what I want to be a recurring segment on the show. I don't have a name for it yet, but one of the things I like to do when I wake up is I take a look at the front pages of Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC to get an idea of what they are prioritizing and not prioritizing from day to day. Now, interestingly, before we go to these shots, according to Snapstream's transcripts, that is a service that collects news coverage and produces transcripts from it. The name Michael Cohen was not uttered a single time during Fox News' top-rated shows last night on Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, or Laura Ingraham. Bret Baier mentioned it very briefly before the Republican lobbyist who was on his show dismissed it as nonsense. But on their 3 primetime biggest shows, they didn't mention it. I mean, come on, they couldn't even put up a defense of Michael Cohen. We find out that he might have gotten $500,000 from a Russian oligarch during the very beginning of the Russia investigation. They can't mention it, that's a little bit odd. And I believe Fox and Friends this morning did talk about it for 38 seconds. So they did at least mention it. That is something.
I'm sure the 38 seconds consisted of them saying it's not a big deal.
I have a feeling
they
that it might have been.
repeated that phrase, it's not a big deal, as many times as they could in 38 seconds.
Yeah, but look, let's be fair to these mainstream media outlets and just see, whether it's on this or other things, what are they prioritizing this morning? I went and I took screenshots at basically the same exact time. Fox News is focusing on the 3 Americans detained in North Korea. They're coming back. Look, that is a perfectly valid story to talk about. It appears that this is one of the things we're getting out of the meeting with Kim Jong-un later on this year. So that's good, that's good. I don't think I see, oh yeah, no, over on the right in the editor's picks, you can see Michael Cohen linked firm received big payments from Russian oligarch report. So hell, they did include it. Right after something about the Guardians of the Galaxy director apologizing for making fans cry. So it is mentioned.
And also on the left, Trump TV coverage is 91% negative.
Exactly.
Says the study. So
and that merited a picture.
So what it's also telling, look at this, it's perfectly laid together. So then it's telling you what the big thing to look at is in the middle, which is what most people just look at and nothing else, first of all.
Yeah.
If someone scrolls to the left side where there's now pictures, that's the next thing your eyes will go to is pictures in those stories.
Yes.
Now, of course, confirmation hearing says we love that that torturer.
And that is an important story. Cool. I think that should be there.
And then if you happen to go to any other sources and find what they're talking about with Cohen and the payments, make sure you see that anything that's about Trump on TV is negative and it must be biased. So anything else you read, anything else you read is false. Is the point.
Okay, let's turn now to CNN. CNN also focusing on the Americans being released from North Korea. Again, perfectly fine story. They have live updates from the Haspel confirmation hearing. That is good. Hawaii is going to have acid rain. Hey, look, they're talking about the environment. That's good. I did think that there was something about Cohen there. Oh yeah, CNN exclusive on the far right. But again, like even CNN, who did some of the initial reporting on this, in less than 24 hours later, they're moving on. I'm sure that it'll be talked about on their show later, some of the shows later on, but they've largely moved on. And so then really fast, MSNBC, also the North Koreans related Americans. It is the biggest story, but again, $500,000 and they're moving right on. Anyway.